Friends, I want to welcome you all to today's National Yom HaShoah event, an event in which we come together as one in so many ways. We come together in the support this event has received from the whole United Kingdom Jewish community. We come together in the support from over 120 communal organizations, and we come together as one in the number of people present. And we come together to mark a number of special anniversaries. There are well over 3,000 of us here today, maintaining this as the largest event in the country to mark Yom HaShoah. Each year on this day, on Yom HaShoah, Jewish communities all over the world pause, reflect, and remember the unique events of the Holocaust. Many of us will do that tonight and tomorrow on Yom HaShoah itself, but this afternoon we come together as one to remember our own loss in our own way. Unlike the outward-looking National Holocaust Memorial Day on the 27th of January each year, a national event which has become ever more embedded in British national life since it was first marked in this country in 2001, and for which this year there were over 7,000 events up and down the country to mark that day. For us, Yom HaShoah is introspective, perhaps more personal for us as Jews. It is our day, but I'm also very pleased to welcome many distinguished guests, including ambassadors, high commissioners, representatives of diplomatic missions, members of both houses of parliament, and many mayors and deputy mayors who have joined us to mark this very special occasion. I will be forgiven, I hope, if I mention only four by name: the Chief Rabbi Ephraim Mervis, His Excellency Mark Regev, Israel's ambassador to the Court of St. James, Lara Predelska, actress and grandchild of 4 Holocaust survivors, and the Right Honourable Sadiq Khan, Mayor of London, who was here with us last year on his very first official engagement after his election as Mayor. Friends, today is when we come together as one to mourn our loss, to tell the story, and to remember the 6 million who would have chosen life, but had that choice taken away from them in the most brutal of ways. And we come together to renew our pledge that they will not be forgotten. we join together because we owe it to each one of those 6 million to ensure that their memories live on. And we come together to mark Yom HaShoah for 3 particular purposes: to remember, to reflect, and perhaps most importantly, to renew that pledge, our pledge, that the murdered 6 million of our people will never be forgotten. Today we will remember the victims of the Shoah in a number of different ways, but our theme this year in particular is women's resistance. We will reflect in our traditional way, we will honor our survivors and refugees. We have, I think, some 180 survivors and refugees here with us today, but above all, we do need to renew that pledge. And to help us do that, we begin with the Yad Vashem law, We Commune, which will be read by Jonathan Arkush, President of the Board of Deputies of British Jews.
I'm proud that our community has come together to commemorate Yom HaShoah. More than 130 communal organisations are here under the banner of the Board of Deputies of British Jews. Remember, together we are one. I shall read from the Yad Vashem law, enacted by the Knesset in 1953. We commune on the 27th of Nisan, Holocaust Martyrs and Heroes Remembrance Day, with the memory of the 6 million members of our nation who perished as tormented martyrs at the hands of the Nazis and their helpers. We commune with the memory of the communities and families of the House of Jacob that were destroyed and obliterated in a malevolent scheme to eradicate the name and civilization of Israel from under heaven. We remember with respectful awe the fortitude of our brethren who gave their lives for their people in sanctity and purity, the sublime valor of those quarantined in ghettos, and of the fighters who rose and kindled the flame of rebellion to redeem their people's honor. And we remember the lofty, relentless struggle of the Jewish masses for their humanity and their Jewish civilization. And we remember the righteous among the nations who saved Jews at the risk of their own lives. It is now my pleasure to introduce Ben Helfgott. At the age of 87, it was 77 years ago when the Nazis invaded his hometown in Poland, and he spent 3 years in various concentration camps. Of his entire family, only Ben and his sister survived. And how he survived. He became a champion weightlifter of this country in 1954, 55, 56 and 58. He represented Great Britain at weightlifting in the 1956 Olympics in Melbourne, captaining the British team. And he was a bronze medalist in 1958 at the Commonwealth Games and a gold medalist in 1950, 1953 and 1957 at the Maccabiah Games. How he survived. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to introduce the one and only, the iconic Ben Helfgott.
When the Polish people heard that the Jews were sent to Treblinka, they viewed them with contempt. They accused them of cowardice and lack of national honor. They asked, why did they not defend themselves? Why did they not go like sheep to the slaughter. 20 years later, many Israelis ask the same question. Why did they go like sheep to the slaughter? Why did they not simply throw themselves on the Germans when they knew that death was inevitable? What the Poles did not take into consideration was that although they lived under German occupation and tyranny, they were still moving around freely, and above all, were not dying of hunger, were not infested by vermin, as were the Jews of the Warsaw Ghetto. And indeed, all the Jews who were locked up in the ghettos of Poland and elsewhere in Europe. The Germans used deception. They announced that the Jews would be resettled in the east. In the Warsaw Ghetto, they offered every person 2 loaves of bread and a half pound of jam. The lure of such a feast, the like of which many had not seen for many months, was too attractive to refuse. They rationalized that if the Germans wanted to destroy them, why would they bother to offer them so much bread? When the Organization of Jewish Fighters, which was established in August 1942, at the height of the deportation to Treblinka and at the lowest ebb of Jewish morale in the Warsaw Ghetto, appealed to resist the Germans. It fell on deaf ears. The majority found it difficult to accept that however cruel the Germans were, they would descend to genocide. Some people believed that this was German provocation. Inciting the Jews to defend themselves would give the Germans a pretext to destroy them. When the deportations stopped in 1942 and the curfews were lifted, news of mass extermination in Treblinka from eyewitness account began to arise. It suddenly dawned on those who had avoided deportation that they had committed a cardinal mistake in not resisting. Now it was not merely oppression, not merely expulsion, not merely pogroms, not merely mass killings in this or that Jewish community, but total extermination of Jewish people wherever Jews were to be found in Nazi Europe. Most of them felt guilty that they had allowed their wives and children to be taken away without inflicting heavy casualties on the Germans, Ukrainians, and Latvians. Most of those who were left in the ghetto without their familiars were determined that from now on, if Jewish blood were to be shed, the enemy would have to pay a high price. The uprising offered a chance to die with honor, a death in battle, instead of the inevitable death in the gas chamber. By taking up arms, the Jews acquired a new respect. They had established themselves on the political arena in the continental world. The Warsaw Ghetto Revolt was the first urban uprising in an occupied city in Europe, a revolt that kept sizable enemy forces tied up over a period of time that was longer than the defense of some countries during the Second World War. They gave a signal to the resistance movements in Nazi-occupied Europe that if the Jews, who had lived in unbearable conditions in the Warsaw Ghetto for over 1.5 years, could resist with scanty weapons such a ruthless war machine for 3 weeks, how much more damage could they inflict upon the enemy? The Jewish ghetto fighters served as an inspiration to others. Later that year, 1943, revolts took place in the extermination camps of Treblinka and Sobibor, as well as the towns of Vilno and Bialystok. From now on, the Nazis were no longer invincible. It is important to remember that the German army was by now driven out of Africa and were being pushed back ferociously on all fronts by the Soviet Union. There is no doubt that the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising will be remembered as a major event in Jewish history and serves as an inspiration to future generations. We are so privileged within our community to have so many wonderful Jewish organizations. Many of them join us here today and who do so much for British society and stand at the forefront of our community as beacons of hope for the future of Jewish people. Whilst we, the survivors, cannot carry on forever, looking out and seeing so many of you, all here too, we are passing the baton of remembrance to you with all great confidence. Thank you.
We stand here today to represent the youth of our community. We recognize that no matter how many words are written, how many testimonies given or images shown, we will never truly comprehend the enormity of the Shoah, a tragedy like no other in the history of our people.
We stand here in unity with Jewish youth across the UK and throughout the world to promise that the 6 million victims of the Shoah will never be forgotten.
We stand here to remember whole communities that were lost and a generation of Jewish children whose laughter was silenced by death.
We stand here to honour every survivor and refugee, to acknowledge all that they have achieved and assure them that their legacy is secure in all our hands.
We stand here to honour those who made great sacrifices and risked their own lives in order to save the lives of others.
We stand here in recognition of the impact the Shoah has had on our Jewish identity and on our community. Though we cannot change the past, we can shape the future by remembering.
We stand here to pledge that the Shoah will have a permanent place in our community's memory, and that we will come together each year on Yom HaShoah to pay tribute to all its victims.
When the war broke out, we were still trying madly to leave Germany to emigrate, which became more and more impossible, of course. And when the war broke out, we knew we were trapped and couldn't go anywhere anymore. And surely enough, in 1942, the deportations in Germany started in earnest. My parents were deported. My sister and I were working in a factory and were considered still useful for the war effort, I suppose. My sister and I, we were quite naughty people, and I didn't just want to sit and wait till somebody comes and murders me, because this was the situation. So we involved ourselves in clandestine activities and forged papers for prisoners of war in the factory that we worked in. We were caught and we were arrested ourselves, put in prison. And we are very lucky to be able to remain in prison for over a year, because in prison, I mean, although it's extremely unpleasant, but nobody kills you there, which meant, in short, that our arrival in Auschwitz happened a year later than it might have done. And when I came to Auschwitz, prepared to go into the gas chamber, a very unusual thing happened, that I was asked my name and by another prisoner, and where I come from and what did I do before the war. And I said, really ridiculously. I said, well, I used to play the cello. She said, that's fantastic. There's a band here and I should wait. And so she ran off and came back with the conductor of the orchestra. And I joined this famous orchestra in Birkenau, which I think was a lifesaver. People say, how could you possibly play music there? You know, it wasn't a case, come to Auschwitz, I expect to go in the gas chamber. This is basic truth. Instead of that, somebody puts a cello in my hand. Now, what am I going to say? No, I don't play here, I only play in Carnegie Hall? No.
Throughout all that they endured, camp inmates found ways to resist. Some, like Anita, were able to resist in spirit, to play music, to create art, and to read and write in secret. Some showed resistance through acts of worship, but for many, resistance simply came in the form of the daily struggle to survive. Individuals and groups struggled day in, day out to record what was happening and to ensure that the Nazis' crimes would be documented, often knowing that they would not be there to see the day that the war ended and the Nazis were brought to justice.
Women in the Holocaust had a unique struggle. They had to become breadwinners, often risking their lives to find ways to feed their families. And women across Europe, despite the unimaginable conditions, found ways to help others. Women like Yehudit Taub, who joined the Dutch resistance and distributed forged ration cards and food to Jewish families who were hiding on farms. She was betrayed and deported in 1941 and sent to Westerbork and then Ravensbrück. Whilst at Ravensbrück, she and her friends wrote fantasy recipes, and they would tell each other about the meals they used to cook, the ingredients, and the methods of cooking.
Although dangerous, talking about and occasionally writing down these recipes would remind the women of their homes. They would remember meals they'd once shared with loved ones. The opportunity to remember helped inmates make it through the day, but beyond that, they were able to remember the lives that they'd left behind. Try as they might, the Nazis could not erase the cultures and traditions which they held dear.
And then there was the act of staying alive, resisting the Nazis' plan to annihilate every Jew everywhere. As the oppression increased, mothers and fathers were faced with an impossible decision, whether to stay together as a family, knowing that they may not survive, or whether to entrust their children to others, in the hope that they would survive, knowing that they may never see their children again.
Anne Frank, whose name has become synonymous thanks to her diary, was one of those children, forced to be silent during the day, living in constant fear until the unthinkable happened and she was caught and sent to her death.
Of the 6 million Jews who were murdered in the Holocaust, 2 million of them were women. Today we remember every victim and each and every act of resistance.
Before the war, we were still sort of different as Jews. But we were allowed to do a lot of things. We were allowed to sort of have a normal life. And then things changed, and we began to be persecuted. The train took us to Sokolov, where we lived. I lived with family, and I went out to work on a farm. The person who looked after us had a whip and was hitting us that we should work with corn stronger. He didn't want us to die or be caught by the Germans. So he said, I don't want to see you die. Run wherever you can, do whatever you can, but don't be here because otherwise the Germans will take you. I went with a girl that I met sort of in the camp, and we got friendly, and I would run with her into the woods, and we were hiding there. For a while we were safe, and then we went out in the evenings to beg for food, and I went together with Rushka, and then one day someone said to us, don't come together, let one come one time and the other one, and that's what we did. And then one time Rushka went for food and never came back. I went up one day to have breakfast, and the woman who gave me the breakfast said, you are Jewish, and I denied. The woman reported me to the Gestapo, and they took me. They beat me up, and they took me to the prison in Warsaw, in Pavia Street, a very, very strict prison. When I was interviewed by the Gestapo, they said, I can admit that I'm Jewish, nothing will happen to me. They sent me to a very good camp, and it will be all right. But I kept on saying I'm not Jewish. And I was released that I'm not Jewish, I'm free, and I can go. I lived out the rest of the war. I am here to tell the story.
Good afternoon. My name is Laura Pradelska, and I am the grandchild of 4 Holocaust survivors. Today's theme of women's resistance is so close to my heart as both of my grandmothers, Esther and Clara, survived the Shoah, a resistance in itself. I am honored to stand in front of you today and be able to share with you their stories of survival, hope, and courage. My paternal grandmother, Clara Stern, was born in 1918 in a town called Bielsko in Poland. She married her husband at 20 years of age. Soon after, the German army invaded Poland, and they were sent to the Nowy Zanks ghetto. Every morning at 6 a.m., they were marched to a light bulb factory, and then back to the ghetto at 8 p.m. During her first 6 months at Nowy Zanks, Klara gave birth to a little boy. But each day she was forced to go to work, and she had to leave him behind with the other children and the elderly. About 8 months later, one evening, when Klara and her husband were marched back from work, they found the ghetto empty. All children and elderly people had been shot during the day by the Nazis, including Klara's little boy. In 1942, the ghetto of Nowy Zanks was liquidated. Klara and her husband were transported to Plaszów, a labor and concentration camp. Things rapidly became worse. In early 1944, liquidation of the camp began. You see, my grandmother, she had a friend from school. She worked as a secretary in the office of the camp management. And she told my grandmother under no circumstances to get on any train until she advised her to do so, because most of the trains were going to extermination camps such as Belzec, where people would be killed upon arrival. One day she told my grandmother, today was the day. Today was the day to get on a train, and it would be good. My grandmother and her husband went to the train station. They had to stand in separate lines. And as my grandmother was just about to step on the train, her friend came running and said, Klara, do not get on this train. This is not a good train. So she didn't get on it, but her husband did. And that was the last time she saw him alive. Days later, Klara too was transported to Auschwitz-Birkenau. She never told us much about what happened, but I know that in 1945 she was liberated. Since she had no idea where to go, she returned to Katowice, where she had once lived with her husband. There she found out that none of her siblings had survived. Neither had her parents nor her husband. My grandmother received a letter from her mother-in-law. She wrote to her that she had found her through the Joint, a Jewish-American organization that was looking after survivors, and that she knew her son was dead. She urged Klara to come and stay with her in the displaced person camps near Landsberg in Munich. Later, Klara met a wonderful man, a fellow survivor, my grandfather Henry, and they loved each other until their last day. Whilst Klara's story epitomizes the resistance people showed as they fought to survive on a daily basis, my maternal grandmother Esther highlights a different kind of resistance. You see, Esther was 21 years old when the Germans arrived and they invaded her hometown in Poland. Immediately, all the Jews from the town were forced into a ghetto. They were locked into a small area, and as time went on, the conditions deteriorated. There was less and less food, and people started dying of starvation. My grandmother Esther started helping her family. At great risk to herself, she would travel in and out of the ghetto illegally, smuggling in food to share with her family. She had blonde hair and blue eyes, and she spoke excellent Polish without the slightest hint of a Yiddish accent, and she was very beautiful. So she managed to get herself forged Aryan papers. When the Germans started transporting people to the death camps, she boldly decided to save as many members of her family as she possibly could. Under severe risk of death, she saved her little nieces. They were only 2 years old, Naomi, and Eva. For her younger sister Rivka, she managed to get forged papers and smuggle her out of the ghetto. Esther knew that if the children remained in the ghetto, they wouldn't survive. It was under the most excruciating heartbreak imaginable that Naomi's and Eva's parents handed their children over. Esther had been searching for a place to hide the children for months. For little Eva, she had found a lonely Christian woman, and she was told by her school teacher that the woman might take Eva in. One freezing evening, she took Eva out of the ghetto, and she took her down to the street where the woman lived. You see, the woman didn't know Eva was coming, and when she saw the woman come out of the house, she pushed Eva towards her. From afar, she watched and waited until the woman took the child in, and she was very well cared for. A few days later, Esther took Naomi, her other 2-year-old niece, to a convent. Esther had heard that the nuns wouldn't ask too many questions. Years later, when the Allied forces, including the British, defeated the Nazis, Esther, under much heartbreak and duress, managed to locate the girls. Their parents, as well as the rest of their whole family, had been murdered. Esther, her sister Rivka, and the children, Naomi and Eva, were the only survivors. My grandmother Esther found a husband, my grandfather Meyer Schulz. They both adopted Eva and Naomi. He was a man with a heart of gold, and he treated them like his own children for the rest of his life. Because of Esther's wisdom, intuitiveness, and above all, bravery, I am so lucky to have my incredible aunts today. My mother, Minka, who is here today, was born in the displaced persons camp, and she grew up with Naomi and Eva as sisters, and later the family had another baby boy named Jackie. The 6 of them were a happy family, and they still are today. My parents told me from early childhood where I come from and what my family had been through. Today, in the face of anti-Semitism, racism, and terrorism, I so strongly believe that we must tell these stories for generations to come. They are important for humanity. Thank you so much for listening. Shortly, we will be hearing a wonderful piece of music from Hannah Senesh, someone who epitomizes women's resistance in every way. Hannah Senesh was born in Hungary in 1939. She emigrated to Palestine. She soon joined the British Army and began her training in 1943 to undertake special operations. On March 14th, 1944, she parachuted into Yugoslavia and joined the partisans. Despite the group deciding that their mission to continue onto Hungary was far too dangerous, Hannah kept going to the border where she was arrested. The military transmitter she carried was quickly discovered, and she was brutally tortured and interrogated, but she absolutely refused to give up any information, even when they threatened to kill her mother. She was eventually tried for treason and executed in 1944. As well as being an inspirational resistance fighter, saving lives, Hannah was a very gifted poet. I'm so proud and honored to introduce to you one of her best-known pieces, Eli, Eli.
hamayim, barak hashamayim, tfilat ha'adam, hachor v'hayam, rishrush shel hamayim, barak hashamayim, tfilat ha'adam. O Lord my God, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the water, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of man, the sand and the sea, the rush of the water, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of man. Hachor v'hayam, rishrush shel hamayim, barak hashamayim, tfilat ha'adam.
As part of the UK delegation of March of the Living. We're proud to represent the UK here on Yom HaShoah. We've been in Poland for 5 days learning about the long and incredible history of Jewish life in Poland and the catastrophe that befell the Jewish people here. We are privileged to be able to light this candle and honour the memory of the nearly 1 million people, Jewish people, who died here. From us in Auschwitz, with you in London, we honour the pledge and we remember together.
We now begin our own candle lighting ceremony. For each candle, we have teams of 3, representatives of the second, third, and fourth generation in some cases, a representative of our main religious organizations in the community, accompanied by a survivor or refugee. So our first candle will be lit by Ray Simonson in honor of Danielle Simonson, hidden in France thanks to the kindness and bravery of neighbors whose grandparents and other family members were murdered in Auschwitz. He will be accompanied by Stephen Pack, the president of the United Synagogue, and a survivor refugee with them is Rita Rosenbaum, a refugee from Germany. Please. We light this candle to honor those who managed to survive the darkest hours of history. For the second candle, we have Angela Cohen, Craig Rinder, Judge Robert Rinder, Max and Jack Rinder, in memory of Moshe Maliniski and the 732 boys and girls who came to the United Kingdom after the war. They are accompanied by David Herrera, the Vice Chairman of the Spanish and Portuguese Jews Congregation, and will join Lily Ebert, slave laborer and Auschwitz survivor. We light this candle in memory of all the innocent victims, whether Jew or Gentile, who perished at the hands of the Nazis in the days of the Holocaust. For the third candle, we have Dov and Levi Richman in memory of Olga Simon and in honor of Claire Richman, accompanied by Leon Newmark, the trustee of the Federation of Synagogues, and they will join Ivor Weider, camp survivor of Auschwitz and Belsen. Light this candle to ensure the never-ending memory of those innocent victims killed in the Shoah. For the fourth candle, we have Michael, Adam, and Maya Uyghur in honor of Jerry Uyghur and in memory of the Uyghur family who perished. They will be accompanied by Shirley Fenster, co-chair of Masorti Judaism, and they will join Sam Freiman, a camp survivor from Buchenwald and Theresienstadt. We light this candle to honor the righteous Gentiles who risked their lives in attempts to save the Jews of Europe. For the fifth candle, we have Helen Stone in memory of Emmy Golding, accompanied by Jeffrey Marks, the chair of the Movement for Reform Judaism. And they will join Janek Goldberger, a camp survivor from Buchenwald and Plaszow. We light this candle to honor the 1.5 million children murdered by the Nazi tyranny. For the sixth candle, we have Michael and Sadie Newman in memory of the parents and brother of Sally Reynolds, Michael's grandmother, joined by Monique Blake, Vice President of Liberal Judaism, and they will meet Alice Fraser, refugee from Germany on a domestic work permit. We light this candle for the lost generations and what they would have brought to the world in art, science, medicine, and all walks of life, all lost. I'd ask you all now to stand, please, for the memorial prayer.
ישראל, אנשים, נשים וטף, שנהרגו ונשחטו, שנשרפו ושנטבחו, שנחנקו ושנקברו חיים. בידי הנאצים ויוצריהם יימח שמם, ומסרו נפשם על קידוש השם. אהבו שאנו מתפללים לעילוי נשמתם. מגן עדן תהא מנוחתם לכם. בעל הרחמים יסתירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים. ויצרו החיים את נשמתם, אדוני הוא נחלתם.
Please join me in reciting Kaddish for the 6 million of our people murdered in the Shoah. Yitkadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, B'alma divrach Hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayechon uv'yomechon, V'chaye dikol Beit Yisrael, B'agala v'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevorach Le'olam Ul'almei Olmaya. Yitborach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'a v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithada v'yitalel v'yithalal Shemei Dekudasha B'riachu Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata v'amiram v'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabbah min Shemaya V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom bimromo, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen.
There are many silences in Judaism. There's a silence of grief. Vaidom Aaron, Aaron's silence when his sons died. There's a silence of trauma. Pi eftach lo ne'elamti, when there are no words to express what we feel. There is the silence of the victims, the words, the prayers they did not live to say. There is the silence of death. And there is the silence of memory, as we remember those we have lost. Nefesh achat ke'olam maleh. One life is like a universe. Tonight we remember 6 million lost universes, a whole murdered generation. if we were to stand in silence for 1 minute for each of the victims of the Shoah, we would have to remain silent for 11.5 years. Let us now stand, remember, and be silent.
Please be seated.
Before the outbreak of war, Jews across Europe made the difficult decision to leave their families, friends, and the communities they knew. They packed their bags, kissed their loved ones goodbye, and they left behind them the towns that they called home. They hoped, but could not be sure, that they may find safety, perhaps even a warm welcome.
In the years preceding the Holocaust, many in the international community were too slow to open their doors. However, in November 1938, following Kristallnacht, the night of violence against Jews, the British government realized the true extent of the threat faced by Jews across Europe under the Nazi government's control.
They decided to relax some of their immigration laws, allowing children under the age of 17 to enter the UK, provided that they had a sponsorship of £50 per person. Through an initiative known as the Kindertransport, 10,000 children were brought to safety in the UK.
As they arrived, many didn't speak English. They were housed with strangers. The food they ate wasn't like the meals they were used to at home. They had to start new schools and make new friends. All the while, these children longed for their homes, their own toys, the familiar surroundings of their hometowns, and, most of all, their family and friends.
It was a difficult transition, but the difficulty didn't end once the children had settled into their new surroundings. After the war, the majority of these children learnt that their parents had been murdered. They had to face the reality of the fact that they wouldn't be returning home, and they wouldn't see their loved ones again.
Following liberation, Britain again opened its doors, this time to the boys, a group of 732 child survivors who were flown to Lake Windermere. Though having lost their families in the Holocaust, these children were determined to survive. They leant on each other, and they found their feet in this new country.
Despite the hardship they faced, many survivors and refugees went on to play a significant role in the British Jewish community and across the United Kingdom, becoming dentists, teachers, doctors, nurses, MPs, mothers, and fathers. They made new friends, went to school and college, gained qualifications, found new jobs. Eventually, they started new families.
For every refugee or survivor who has started a new life here in Britain, we know that they will always carry with them the memory of the life they left behind, of the struggles they faced, and of the loved ones they lost.
I was born in Berlin as Ruth Michaelis, and I came to England when I was 4 with my 7-year-old brother on the Kindertransport. Growing up in England, I knew from the very beginning that I was different. I felt that I had to be responsible for keeping myself alive. I felt pretty abandoned. I tried to be fully accepted each time, but it didn't work. We were passed on again and again. First foster family was a disaster. A rector and his wife who had no children of their own, and she clearly didn't want to look after refugee children. It was a nightmare. And then we were put in a boarding school where I still felt different because all the other kids had contact with their parents. And I was very sensitively aware that I only had guardians, not parents. And then we went to a second foster family where there were 5 children. And we were very, very happy there. But I still felt different because they didn't allow me to call them mummy and daddy. I thought my mother was dead, and nobody contradicted me, so it was sort of accepted that I had no mother because she was dead. And I really thought I'd got my life planned and in my control, and that's when my parents came back on the scene and repatriated me to Germany. A second time, my whole world had been whisked away like a carpet from under my feet. I couldn't have a passport of my own, but I had a large piece of paper with person of no nationality across the top. I had to travel with that, and it was very difficult to get the required visas and documentation to get back to England. I'm married. We've been married for 58 years. We have 3 grown-up children and 2 grandchildren. It was never said as such, but I think we absorbed the need to have family and children. I think that got into all survivors, that to defeat Hitler, we had to have normal families and replace the Jewish community. So I always felt that that was the future I wanted. And I don't think it was by chance that I found a nice Jewish boyfriend at university.
Chief Rabbi, Rabbonim, Your Excellencies, Mr. Mayor, Lords, ladies, gentlemen. Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Memorial Day, is not just something I participate in as ambassador. For me, it is something immensely personal. Like all the children of survivors here today, I feel the weight of the Shoah on my shoulders. My late father, Martin, was born in Magdeburg, Germany in 1931. He and his family were victims of Nazi persecution. He and his family lived in terrible, terrible danger. Like many others, they tried to leave Europe before the outbreak of war. But exit papers were difficult to come by, and in the end arrived too late. Only because of exceptional circumstances did they manage to survive those terrible years. In the living room of my childhood home, there was a picture of my father with his Jewish classmates. In that picture, taken in 1938, he and his friends are on a school outing. They are smiling on a sunny summer day. Of those 30 smiling children pictured, only 4 survived into the following decade. One was my father, another my uncle. In those difficult years, doors across the globe were being closed to Jews. Country after country saying, entry denied. But Britain offered refuge. Through the Kindertransport alone, 10,000 lives were saved. This is surely something Britain should be proud of. Unfortunately, it was a drop in the bucket. Millions remained trapped in Europe. As we reflect on those dark years, I think it is also important that we consider the changes that have taken place since. And the most profound change of all is, of course, the change that occurred in 1948, when our people re-established sovereignty and independence in our historic homeland. In doing so, we gained not just a place of refuge, but a place where our people could be free, a place where our people could prosper, a place where Jewish people could finally defend ourselves by ourselves against those who sought to harm us. We must never forget the horrors that we went through. We should never forget that our people were once stateless refugees fleeing genocide. And we will never forget what a difference the State of Israel has made. Today, let us stand together and embrace all those who survived, who out of the deepest darkness found light and built for themselves new lives. We turn to them today. We applaud them for their strength. We applaud them for their determination to overcome untold horror and to rebuild life. We applaud them for all that they have done, and we say thank you, because the survivors are an inspiration to us all. Can I ask all of us here, please, to stand up? I'd ask the survivors and the refugees to remain seated, and I think we should all offer them our applause.
Friends, last year, please be seated. Last year, we were joined by the then very newly elected Mayor of London, the Right Honourable Sadiq Khan, who joined us on his first official engagement in his new role. And we are honoured that he has joined us again today, reflecting the pledge that we all made to come together each year to mark Yom HaShoah. And I now invite him to address us.
Friends, respected elders, survivors, today we gather to remember the millions killed in the Holocaust, a scar on the history of humanity that we continue to struggle to comprehend. Over 6 million Jewish men, women, and children were killed. Almost 1 year ago, I attended this commemoration event as my first official engagement after being elected Mayor of London. And I'm honoured to be invited to join you once again. Last year and today, I've had the privilege to meet a number of Holocaust survivors and refugees, to shake their hands and to listen to their incredible stories. And I've been deeply moved by their accounts of what they've had to endure. A few years ago, I joined students from schools across London on a visit to Auschwitz-Birkenau, organised by the Holocaust Education Trust. And nothing can prepare you for the horror of what you see there. And it brought home to me how it's more important than ever that we remember and teach younger generations about the Holocaust and subsequent genocides. For when we remember, we learn from the past. This is why it was important for me to host a Holocaust Memorial Day event in City Hall this year. And this is why it's so important that we have the new National Holocaust Memorial in the heart of London, to honour the victims and survivors and to educate further generations about the dangers of where prejudice and hatred can lead. And I'm proud to be one of the judges who will decide the eventual winner. And you can see the 10 finalists on display today. The Holocaust took place because insidious persecution was allowed to take root. So, as well as remembering those we lost, today is also a time to remember that we have a responsibility, a solemn duty to teach our children what happened and to call out injustice, persecution, and discrimination wherever we see it. It's a time to remain steadfast in condemning of all forms of racism, anti-Semitism, and hatred. And it's a time to say never, ever again. Many stories from the Holocaust demonstrate the very worst of what humans can do. But there are also stories of great human resilience and heroism. Stories of those who battled through unimaginable horrors and risked their own lives to save the persecuted. The theme of this year's Yom HaShoah ceremony is women's resistance. And it's right that as we come to mourn and remember the loss of so many lives, we also pay tribute to those who acted bravely to save lives. We can learn from their values and their courage, and it gives us all hope. Thank you all very much.
The Hebrew word tikvah has two meanings. Tikvah is a cord, a thin rope, and tikvah also means hope. The earliest appearance of the word is in the Bible, the second chapter of Joshua, where we are told that at tikvah, a thin rope was dropped from a window in the walled city of Jericho to provide an escape route for a few who wished to flee. There is so much in common between rope and hope. A rope is an accumulation of threads woven together to produce one strong combined entity. And so too, when people stand together with determination and single-mindedness to achieve a particular united objective, there is hope that they can attain their aspirations. It is for this reason that I believe that as we now approach the conclusion of today's ceremony, Yesh Tikvah, there is hope. There is hope because today we stand together, we are one. Yesh Tikvah, there is hope because today we are absolutely determined to respect our commitment and pledge to our remarkable survivors to guarantee that the horrors of the past will never be forgotten. Yesh Tikvah, there is hope, because we know we are not alone. And we are accompanied by so many numerous people within our society. This is what the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, was referring to when he made reference to the United Kingdom Holocaust Memorial Foundation historic initiative alongside the Houses of Parliament. Yesh Tikvah, there is hope, because Yesh Medina, we are blessed to have Medinat Yisrael, the Jewish state, which will forever be the champion of the rights and the privileges, the welfare and well-being of Jews across the globe. Yesh Tikvah, there is hope, because we know that there will always be heroines like Hannah Senesh who will go the extra mile to protect the Jewish people. And like her, we will forever cherish the natural wonders of the world, the sand and the sea, the splash of water, the lightning in the heaven, the prayers of women and men. But ladies and gentlemen, above all else, Yesh Tikvah, there is hope, because there are many millions of children around the world who are learning about the Holocaust. They are horrified to find out what transpired, and they are saying, never again. I feel so encouraged right now to be surrounded by 150 children from 7 of our schools. In a few moments, they will sing a song called Never Again. We pray that the Almighty will bless our fragile and challenged world so that it shall become a world of unity, a world of harmony, a world of fraternity, a world of compassion and tranquility, and above all else, a world of peace. Yesh Tikvah, there is hope, for as long as our children will declare, never again.
They stood in fear, where could they go?
The most important thing that I say to young people, especially even to my children, grandchildren, whatever you do, do not hate. Hate is the worst thing in life. You'll hate everybody, including yourself, and you'll have no life at all.
My message for the future generation is to treat all people alike.
My message to my grandchildren is, to thine own self be true. It means be yourself and try and live up to the best things that you can achieve.
We of this generation have had to forgive, so do not keep hate in your heart.
Be a mensch, and the mensch means be a human being and everybody else is a human being, and don't look if they're rich or poor or whatever. They just should look at a human being.
My message to future generations would be tolerance.
My message is to my family and to humanity that the Holocaust should be remembered and education should be all over the world to teach them this should never, never happen again.
You must not give up, and you must be positive rather than negative.
Don't be afraid to say what you want to say.
My message for future generation is to remember who they are, what they are, and their heritage.
I'm not sure I would give that message to future generations. I want my grandchildren to have an advantage over the others.
Friends, this afternoon we have remembered together the heroes of the Warsaw Ghetto because we are one. We have remembered together the 6 million of our people who would have chosen life but were denied that choice by their murderers because we are one. And we have remembered together and honored our survivors and refugees and reminded ourselves of the magnificent contribution they have made to our community and to wider British society because we are one. And we have, as one, paid tribute to the astonishing and empowering stories of resistance by those strong women who have impressed us all as one. But let us now remind ourselves, most importantly, that we remember all of those things in order to look to the future. The past is behind us, but the past lives on in us personally and together for a purpose. And that purpose is for us to fulfill our duty to the 6 million dead and to all the survivors and refugees, to remember and honor their memory and to ensure that their lives are neither forgotten nor denied. Today has been very special and very emotional for us all, a challenging afternoon. But there is another challenge for us all to take away with us today, and that is once again to fulfill the final pledge made in the youth commitment. So I ask each and every one of you here today to commit that the Shoah will have a permanent place in our community's memory, and that we will come together as one each year on Yom HaShoah to pay tribute to all its victims, and thus we will fulfill our duty to the dead and the still living, to pass on the flame of their remembrance to future generations. In their name, we will never forget, and in that way, they will live on through the generations yet to come. We will now sing together with our chazanim and our choirs, Oser Shalom.
Oser Shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu V'yakol Yisrael, V'yakol Yisrael, V'yimaru, Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimroma, Uyaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, V'yakol Yisrael, V'yakol Yisrael, V'yimaru, Amen. Say Shalom, Shalom Bimroma, Uyaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, V'yakol Yisrael, V'yakol Yisrael, V'yimaru,
Friends, before we conclude with Hatikva and our national anthem, I want on your behalf to thank all of those who made today's incredible event happen. In your programs you will see a list of acknowledgements, and I'm not going to take up your time by reading them all out, but I do want to mention the name of the 7 schools who've sent their choirs along to us today. Clor Tikva, the Independent Jewish Day School, Matilda Marks Kennedy, Northwest London Jewish Day School, Rosh Pinah, Sachs Morasha, and Wall Ilford JPS. Now, each individual and organization named in the program has contributed to this occasion, and I say again on your behalf, I thank them. But I do specifically want to refer to the names of the organizing committee: Matty Fruman, Susie Richmond, Jack Weiser, Carol Hart, Jude Williams, and Kirsty Young. And perhaps most importantly of all, their chair, Neil Martin, who was honored by the Queen earlier this year by being made a member of the Order of the British, an officer of the Order of the British Empire. Please give them and all of their colleagues a very well-deserved round of applause. And I'd ask you all now, please, to stand for Hatikva and the national anthem.
Israel.
wish you all a very safe journey home. Please, on your way out, if you haven't already done so, look at the 10 shortlisted designs for the proposed UK Holocaust Memorial and have your say by casting your choice on the iPads that are available for you to do so. Thank you very much for being here with us this afternoon. Well done, children. That was fantastic. Lovely sound. God. Come on, kids.